Hey, Margie here. Would you like to learn some easy things that you can do to improve your vision naturally? Well, if so, you are in the right place. And I'm very excited about our special guest today, Claudia Muehlenweg. And Claudia is the founder of the Naturally Clear Vision Institute and creator of the Naturally Clear Vision Method. She hated her glasses from the day she got them at the age of 3 and has made it her mission to help others see clearly naturally, just like she did over 20 years ago today. Claudia is a sought-after international speaker and workshop leader, and she focuses on finding the root cause of her clients' blurry vision. I've known Claudia for a long time, and she's helped me personally as well as so many people in my community. So I'm really thrilled in our interview today. She shares how this is possible. How can we really improve our vision regardless of our age, and gives us some great tools. So stay tuned. Welcome, Claudia. I am beyond thrilled to have you here on the podcast. And look at our colors. How funny that we're so on the same wavelength. I love it that we even picked the same color to wear today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back, Margie. I really absolutely love your work and your community, and I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah, we have so much fun because both Claudia and I go to each other's community, have done programs, and our communities are similar, and we're just tuned into what matters for people. And yeah, it's just so great. But this time it's very funny because the last time you were on the podcast was in April of 2021. And I mean, we knew each other, but I didn't really know you. And I certainly didn't know what you did. And so I'd ask you questions, but then I implemented what you taught me. And oh my gosh, and we'll talk about this because my night vision, I have no problem at night anymore since what you taught me. And this was just from a few things you taught in the podcast interview. And eye strain, which I was getting on a more regular basis, gone. So, and people in my community, the most amazing thing, which we'll talk about, I can't even get over that their prescriptions, they were able to reduce their prescriptions. And some people aren't even wearing their glasses. So this stuff is amazing. And I'm always so impressed with what you teach. And you really changed my mind. I didn't know any of this was possible. So anyway, I'm just really excited. So let's just get started. I think before we even start, why don't you just quickly tell people the backstory, how you got into this? And because, and this wasn't what you started doing. Why did you get involved with this aspect of eye care? It's a little different. You decided not to be an ophthalmologist. This is a little different way of looking at the eyes, and just share your story.
Yeah, so I got glasses at the tender age of 3 years old, and I was born in the 60s. And when I got to school at 6 years old, I was the only, there was one other boy in school that had glasses, but he was the professor, like the teacher asked, he's like, I know the answer, right? And I was the kid who was not that book smart. I had to study a lot. I was bullied and teased, and I was determined as I got a little older into teenage years, I was determined to do something about it. I wanted to get rid of these crutches because I was, all the names that you can imagine I was called. I was really shy. I didn't have any friends. And so I eventually found a book on natural vision improvement. I had to go all the bookstores in my hometown in Germany. And I found a book and I started implementing the techniques, and they worked. And I was out of glasses basically almost through the early 30s. And then I was in a difficult marriage. I ended up in divorce as a single mom, and I was back in glasses. So in my early 40s, I thought for myself, that I've done this before, and I still have that book. So I dug it out. And at that point, that alone didn't help. But serendipity, right? My yoga teacher ended up just finishing a natural vision teacher training. And so she was looking for students, low cost. And so I signed up, and that was, that really got me results really quick. And then I decided, I worked as a designer in advertising, and I loved that work for many, many years. And at that point, I decided that, especially as I was getting older, this is really the work I want to do. And I became a certified natural vision improvement teacher in 2010. So that's that. And then I started opening my practice and so on and so on.
Well, so glad you did, because you've helped so many people. So why don't you, because as I said, prior to meeting you, and just my own experience, my daughter was in glasses, it would always be, we'd go to the optometrist and or the ophthalmologist, and we have to get, a stronger prescription, stronger contacts on a regular basis. So it was just the gradual decline. And I think most people feel that, especially as you age, that just, it's going to start decreasing. So what I've seen is that's not the case. And why don't you share why that's not and your experience with this?
So I think the first thing I always ask everybody is, do you notice that your vision varies? And most people would say, yes, I notice that maybe in the morning it's better, or on a vacation, or it's worse when I'm working on screens, so most people have some kind of sense that their vision changes a little bit. And I always say, just like your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your heart rate, all these other factors, right, changes based on many, many factors, one of them being stress. And so when we are stressed, and that could be physical stress, right? It could be mental, emotional stress. Imagine you're like rushing, or you had an accident. That moment you're in that kind of shock mode, your vision will not be as clear. Your pupils will be dilated. Your peripheral vision shuts down. You get that kind of tunnel vision, deer in the headlight vision. And so, that's the extreme, right? But noticing how these things changes, and then noticing what I call strains and gains. It's like, what makes it better and what makes it worse? And I always like to tell the example. I had a client a few years ago, and she said when she goes into the garden, her vision gets worse. And most of the time people say they are nature and their vision is better. I was like, really? She said, all I see is all the weeds I have to do. So for her, the garden just meant she liked it clean and perfect, and it was just, overgrown and weedy. And so anyway, so that's an example. So tune into that, because that will give you some clues as to your own behaviors and what stresses you and what kind of makes your vision change. And when you know that, then you realize that you also have an opportunity to help your vision get better instead of just getting worse.
I love that. And I think, I'm such a big believer, and I teach a happiness program, as you know, that this is, one of the foundations really to living a healthy life. But how interesting from a physical and psychological perspective that the stress itself, is going to affect your eyesight. And, it's crazy because people go to the doctor and, they're put in that whatever it is to hold their head and giving the eye exam. And it's so stressful. So I remember my husband once had, once he got the prescription, it didn't work. It was totally not right. So I can see how if you're in a stress state and that's when they're testing you. Is that what
honestly, I think, an eye exam, I think, is the most stressful thing to me. And when I get an eye exam, and I think, and I remember from when I used to wear glasses, because there is, and my clients told me this too, like you said, you're usually you're in this machine, or you're in a dark room, and, and the exam, and you're like, I have to ace this test, right? So you might already hold your breath. You might actually brace yourself, and all the bad habits, right? You stare, and I know everybody watching, it's not listening, that what is watching, Margie, you're blinking a lot, right? You didn't used to blink that much. So we're blinking. Blinking is one of those things that keep you relaxed and your eyes lubricated. But when you are stressed out in that eye exam, you might be staring at like a deer in the headlights, right? You might not move. You might not breathe. You hold your breath. And then they do like this one or that one. And I remember I was like, oh my God, can you do it again? Can you do it again? I don't know. And then you make a decision. You're like, oh God, I hope it's the right decision. And like you said, then you might get a pair of glasses that were really catching you at your worst moment that don't exactly reflect your vision. So that's super common. And I remember I had the exact same experience.
You mentioned blinking. So let's just bring that up now, because that was one of the tools you taught me. And I didn't realize that when we're looking at screens, we don't blink as we would in a normal conversation or when we're off screens. And so that was something you taught me to be aware of. So what is your tip for people on blinking? Because how crazy to have issues because we're not blinking. It's just not something that people think about. Oh my gosh, I didn't blink enough. So why don't you share a little bit about what do you teach about blinking and what people can do?
I think blinking is well, fortunately, just like breathing, we eventually do it, right? If we were just had to remember, we would probably be all dead. We wouldn't breathe. So blinking, they found in studies when we look at screens that we just blink a lot less. Like if you've ever looked at somebody into the eyes and they don't blink, right? It's kind of creepy. It's almost like, it's weird. So we naturally do it when we look somebody in the eyes, but when we look at screens, we kind of get sucked into this kind of screen thing, and then we forget blinking. Or people that are gaming, video games have observed that too. So I just recommend putting stickers on your computer because, like I said, it lubricates the cornea, right? The cornea is the outer part of the clear part of the eye, and that needs the blinking lubricates and nourishes the cornea. And it only takes about 10 seconds of not blinking to thin the tear film out. And especially as we get older, like dry eye is such a big problem, right? Dry eye syndrome. So blinking is one of those super simple, totally free tools or habits that you can kind of start practicing along with like better breathing, all the things that you teach and posture and all those aspects. But that's one of the basic, simple things that you can do. And I've noticed when I talk to people that have great vision, they always blink a lot. So it's a habit of people with good vision.
Well, I love this. What an I mean, everything you taught me was so easy to implement and so powerful. So you know what? Let's just go to the next one because this is such to me, this was the biggest life changer. I think this one was the biggest life changer. Prior to doing this, I thought it was just age that at night when I was going places, especially on the highway, all the lights were just bothering me that I could drive at night, but it was really pretty miserable. And I did it, but I didn't like it. And then when you came on, we discussed sunglasses. So, because a lot of people think, oh my God, and this was me, the minute my eyes, just felt so much better. The minute I went outside, I threw on the sunglasses. I would bike. I would do anything. I would never, truly never, unless it was like a super cloudy day, I would never be outside without my sunglasses. And a lot of people are like that. So you totally changed that for me. So why don't you share about sunglasses?
It's a pretty complex story, but we always want to do a disclaimer first. So there's one thing, let's say this first. Our pupils are built in sunglasses. So when it's really bright, you see the pupils go really small, and when it's dark, the pupils open up big, right? So we all know that. We've all seen that. Now, some people might have pupillary problems where their pupils don't constrict, or they might have taken drugs, or if you ever go to the eye doctor and they put these drops in, the atropine drops in your eyes, then for a dilated pupil exam, you definitely want to make sure you wear sunglasses. And I also say if you're in very extreme conditions, I do want to say that if you're like skiing, or maybe you're from Northern Europe and you live near the equator, so in the middle of the day. But the sunlight has so many different areas of spectrum in the sunlight, right? So when we think about that, the first hour after sunrise, we don't even have UV light. And then at noon, it's the absolute highest level of blue light and UV light, right? But there is it's kind of a bell curve, right? There's the kind of sensation of the noon, and then we go slowly. So in the beginning, we have more those red tones, sunrise, and then in the evening, we have those red-orange tones again, which is that infrared light. All these that we now know are so beneficial for eye health. And we know for hormones, bone health, right? We do need that natural light. And the skin sensors and the eyes, the brain kind of calibrates like how much melanin to secrete. Like all these factors get calibrated by the brain. If you always have these dark glasses on, which by the way used to be me, the brain actually gets confused and it thinks it's night. So it doesn't actually secrete the right hormones and the levels of melanin, and it screws up with your circadian clock and your melatonin levels. I mean, it's a whole complicated biochemistry lesson. But basically, I always say, like, if you wear a hat or a cap, if it's really extremely bright, make sure you do wear protection, right? If you have certain eye diseases, just be smart, but definitely sunrise, sunset. It's so important to get some natural light into our eyes and on our skin.
Yeah. And I guess the thing is that I think what I learned from this is that the sensitivity, I do when I drive, though, I do wear my sunglasses, and I do. If it's very bright, what I do when I bike, I have them, sitting there. So if it's real bright, I'll put them on. But for the most part, I don't. But it made the difference that I don't wear them 24/7. I don't wear them the minute I go. And that's what changed it. So my eyes were no longer so sensitive. So all of a sudden now, when the bright lights came at night, I was desensitized. So I can't thank you enough how that changed really everything. It's just, I don't have any problem anymore.
And your pupillary reaction. So when you go to an eye doctor, depending on the exam they might actually shine a really bright light. And if you ever watch any shows, medical shows, they usually shine a bright light. They kind of want to see, do the pupils react? So the pupillary reaction time, like how quickly does the pupils constrict when it's bright? And that is a problem that I had, and maybe you had too. So when we drive at night and there's the bright light, because our eyes, we always had sunglasses on, and so the eyes never practice. It's almost like you never train that muscle to actually constrict the pupils, and it took too long. And at that point, you got too much and the sensitivity, right? You were never exposed to that level of brightness. So that's almost like, yeah, so it's several factors, and it really helped. Same thing. I couldn't drive at night. It was so stressful, and now it's not a problem at all.
And I have a question. The way I did it after I was shocked. I'm like, really? After I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Let me try this. But I just gradually, eased off them because it would have been too intense because, as I said, the minute I walked outside, I have friends. I know a lot of people like that. The minute I walked outside, I put the sunglasses on. Is that what you recommend? Doing it gradually, easing off them?
I think it really depends. I think the one thing that you want to notice is strain. Like if you take them off, and people have different levels of light sensitivity, right? I usually teach something called sunning, and we do it with eyes closed. And if you're really light sensitive, do it in the shade and just have your eyes closed, and just, there's a lot of light coming through the closed eyelids. So you can start that way with really simple. And when that feels good, then maybe in the morning or the afternoon, you do it with eyes closed, facing the sun eventually, but don't do it in the middle of the day. And then you slowly decrease. I have to say, I just never put my sunglasses on again. And the only time where I actually was like, I was in the snow, it was super bright and the blue skies. And I was like, oh, now I would need sunglasses, but I don't actually own any. But yeah, in that case, I would definitely use them. I mean, here's the thing. If you notice, and maybe you have somebody else watching you, so if you notice that you're wrinkling up, like, you're kind of straining, you crunch your eyes, even if they're closed, that is probably a sign of too much light. And so in that case, I would back off and do it a little bit less. So it's like, yeah, less is more in that case, and just do it slowly, because there's no point in straining. You're not really helping your vision if you do that.
Okay, well, since you mentioned it, we'll talk about it now as well. Sunning, what a phenomenal practice. Now, I was doing that before, but you added something to my sunning practice. It's such a good practice. It only takes a couple minutes, and you want to just share that practice and what you added to mine, I'll just tell you, was the turning the head. I wasn't.
Right.
So why don't you just share that practice? Because this is something, again, these are easy, but powerful, really powerful.
So sunning just basically, like I said, you might start with the back to the sun or in the shade or in dappled light. But let's say you're not that light sensitive and you can do it facing the sun. So imagine there's the sunlight coming from the front of my face. And then I like to take a deep breath in and then exhale. Then I turn my head, let's say in this case, to the left, right? So now my left eye is in the shade. The right eye still gets the light from the sun. So the pupils will just tiny bit open up. And then I inhale, come back to center, and I go to the other side. So basically, I would go really slow, inhale to center. But basically, the eye that's in the shade, the pupil will just open up. It just gives it a little massage. So think of the pupils kind of very and not like huge, like closing and opening, but a little subtle shift and massage of the pupils. And that will really be good for movement in the eyes. It's really relaxing. It helps you practice that pupillary reaction. And a lot of times people are very stiff, and this relates also to things that you're teaching. There's a lot of tension in the neck and the shoulders, especially with vision problems. Sometimes people have bifocals and they tilt their head, or they're nearsighted and they lean into the computer. So a lot of times I see a lot of tension. And when you do that gentle movement, like, chin to shoulder, it's kind of really nice way to massage or to kind of stretch the neck at the same time, which helps with blood flow, lymph drainage, and all those things that our eyes need for staying healthy, basically.
Oh, it's such a great practice. And like you, we do the meditation with it or bring in positivity and sunlight. It's only a couple minutes. It doesn't have to be long, but it really starts your day off. And I mean, whenever you do it in the day, but it just can change everything. So I love that. All right. Why don't you tell us some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to good eye care?
So we already talked about one of them, right? It's staring. So staring is basically that idea. So, and we have to go, I wish I had my little eyeball here, but in the back of your eye is an area called the macula. And you might have heard of macular degeneration. That's the area of your sharpest vision. You only have cone cells there, whereas the other cells, or the rod cells, those are the peripheral vision cells that we use at night. Those don't see sharp and they don't see color. So the macula is the best and sharpest vision. And so when I look at you, Margie, or anybody listening, look at something and notice that that thing that you're looking at, and I'm looking at your right eye in this case, that you see that better than, let's say, your left eye, right? Or anything else. So basically, the farther away from your focal point, let's say I look one of your beautiful flowers, for those of you watching the video, or whatever you're looking at, but the farther away the things are from your focal point where you're looking at, the worse you will see them, right? So because our area of perfect clarity in the macula is very tiny. And so in other words, when we blink, and there's a lot of other things that I'm teaching, but when we create movement, when we blink, we automatically shift our eyes, like we're not staring, we're not trying to like nail down that thing, but we're moving our eyes in a very subtle, by moving our attention, right? So blinking is one of those things that interrupts that kind of staring pattern, right? So that's a big do and don't, is the staring versus blinking. So blinking is the remedy for that. Another don't is the light sensitive. We already covered that. I want to make sure those are also. Let me think. I have so many on my list, and right now I'm like, what else could I say? Not resting your eyes. Also, like sometimes our eyes are just tired, and just close your eyes. Sometimes you don't have to look at something. Maybe you're listening to something, you're sitting on a train, or you're a passenger in a car. Close your eyes and listen. Like give your eyes a little break, right? Versus always having them. So blinking is already a little micro break. But closing your eyes a little longer is giving them a really, really nice break. So that's another thing I would recommend. And then looking at one distance for a long time. It's like our eyes, our brain were never meant to do that. It's like you're sitting cross-legged for like 8 hours, and then you expect to jump up and run. So we want to move our attention. Like I don't like it so mechanical, like the 20-20-20 rule. I feel like move your attention near and far, right? So when I'm looking at you, I can also look above the computer in the distance, but you want to move your attention. That would be one thing versus just looking at it. And it's not so much, the idea that we ruin our eyes by reading, right? We were told as kids, or don't read in dim light, or don't read too long, or don't read small print, that will ruin your vision. That's not true. But what we don't want to do is do it for hours on end without kind of giving your eyes a break and looking far. Because when we look far, the eye muscles are relaxed. And when we look close, the eye muscles are contracted. So that doesn't mean, again, that we can't do it. It's just that we need to kind of, give it a break and move around, basically.
That's such a good point. And with the computer, and especially when so many people were inside more, and where there's just so much more, many people are now working remote, people are on the computer. And, eye strain is just so prevalent. And I had it. I used to get it, even though I do all these amazing things, I would get too engrossed in my work. And, now I don't get it. But you have some really great tips. I mean, you've said a couple of them in terms of changing your vision. And do you want to share some of your favorites for preventing eye strain? Because there's one that I do now that you taught me that was amazing. I mean,
so I don't know if it's the one that I'm thinking about. Do you mean the palming or cupping?
Yes. This is so good. And I mean, again, easy, but eye strain is miserable. And for me, it would just hurt. It would hurt other places. And then I literally had to stop what I was doing. And so this has been so easy. Yeah. Teach the palming because it's so good.
So basically, I said earlier, close your eyes, right? Closing your eyes is just really easy. You can do that. Obviously not when you're driving a car, but, or a bicycle. But anywhere you are in a safe place and you don't have to look, you can just close your eyes. And another layer or level of that is what we call palming or cupping. And it basically means using your cupped hands, the palms of your cupped hands, and you cover your closed eyes that way. And some people like to rub their hands together first to kind of stimulate the nerve endings. And what you want is some elbow support. So I'm not going to do it right now because I would be leaning down. But you want some elbow support. And so you close your eyes. You can rub your hands together if you like. And you cup your hands and you want to cross your fingers over your forehead, so that basically that you have what sometimes people do, they have their hands more parallel, but then they squish the nose, they can't breathe. So you want to cross the fingers, and usually one hand is automatically on top of the other. And then again, your elbows are supported, relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. And then I recommend taking a few deep breaths. And if you're sitting, make sure your feet are planted on the floor, that you feel grounded. And then I like to take a few deep breaths and maybe even sigh it out, whatever you like to do to just kind of arrive. I recommend finding a very comfortable chair or some, cozy place where you like to do this. And then after you've kind of settled in, you've taken a few deep breaths, you might, either listen to a favorite piece of music or maybe what I call an anchor memory. So bringing up something in your mind that makes you go immediately like, yeah, something relaxing, something where you just immediately like go to this happy place, right? That could be a person, a place, an event, real or imagined, or something from your memory, whatever it is. And then you go there, you go on a little mini vacation to that place or that person or that pet, whatever it is. And then you can really immerse yourself in your mind, right? In your inner mind. Maybe the smells, the sounds, things you can touch or feel. Maybe there's something you can taste. So you really want to explore all the senses on this little journey. And then you stay there for as long as you like. Right now, we're going to come out. And when you come out, you want to keep your eyes closed. And then you slowly, slowly, slowly remove your hands. And then wait. Keep your eyes closed for as long, because you notice when you take your hands away how much light comes in. And just wait till you're ready. And when you're ready, I recommend doing 5 quick butterfly blinks, blink, 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 5 gentle squeezes. And then your eyes will feel so much more lubricated and relaxed. And that was like super short.
Oh, it's so good. Well, the beauty of that is you can do it as long as you want. You can do it as short as you want.
Right.
I actually do it as a prevention. Like I just sort of put it in a routine. Do you recommend doing it so that you don't get the eye strain? I mean, I guess you can do it for both if you're starting to feel it, but how good to just it's not a hard thing to do. And also, it relaxes you. It will help reduce your cortisol, and which has so many negative effects on your bones, your overall health. So it's what a win-win practice. And again, it's not hard. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You can combine it. Some people combine it with meditation or prayer, or like actually when my kids were little, I used it. I said, Mommy needs a timeout. And actually, when I first learned this, I felt like a to-do. I would set the timer, and then I'm like, and I recommend not setting a timer. What worked for me, and again, everybody's different, but what worked for me is like I would look at the time and I would do the palming, and I would do it for as long as it felt good. Because if you're sitting there like tapping your toes and you're like, okay, how much longer, that's not going to relax your eyes, right? That doesn't help. And then when you come out and then you look at the time, and sometimes you think, oh, that was 5 minutes. You're like, oh my God, that was like 30 minutes. I can't believe it. And other days you're like, that must have been at least 20 minutes. And then you look up and it's like 6 minutes. So do whatever works for you, what helps you relax. And like you said, it doesn't matter exactly how long. As far as how long, like I noticed when I first learned this, I was still working as a graphic designer. And I noticed in the morning, my eyes were relaxed really quick. It just took a couple of minutes. And then in the evening, it took me like 30 minutes. Like we had already gotten screens and I was working on the computer and I didn't really like it. I used to actually do the graphic design, like cutting up stuff, like physical layouts back in the day. And I didn't really like that. And it took me a long time to relax in the evening. I was so strained. And so I recommend checking in. If you can get the same results in 2 minutes and in 10, then why would you do 10 minutes, right? And for some people, like you said, I recommend it like maybe in the morning and the evening. Other people that have a lot of strain, they might benefit from like 5 2-minute breaks throughout the day. Sometimes I say pee and palm. When you're in the bathroom, men, you would have to sit down, but for us women, you just put your elbows on your knees, right? And you can just obviously wash your hands first, but you can just take a few deep breaths in the bath. It's just a really easy way, especially when you work in an office and you don't have an outside window and you sit in the cubicle. It's such a great way to relax your eyes.
What I also find is that when you practice this on a regular basis, you become used to it. So that when your hands go here and you start the breath, your body knows to relax. So it doesn't even take long.
Right.
You get into that relaxation response pretty quickly because you've been practicing this. And what an amazing tool to have. So I love that. I wanted you to address something because everybody, we go out to lunch or dinner and everybody takes out. Me, I used to as well. My, the glasses, what we call the cheaters or the reading glasses. And why is that not the best thing to do if it makes it easier? You can see the menu, it's nice and big. Why is that not great? And you taught me this too. I had never realized that was not a good thing to do, but want to share your thoughts on this?
And I'm not saying anything bad against drugstore readers. I mean that it's not like, you should not get those and get the eye doctor. Like in that, I'm just talking about generally that magnification, because I call them the gateway drug. And I see that with so many of my friends. You start wearing them before you start with a +1 and you only use it once in a while in dim light. And like you said, in the restaurant. And then before you know it, it's a +1.5. And then it's a +2. And then the +2, and then you go to the eye doctor and they're like, your distance vision, you need progressive glasses or bifocals because now your beautiful distance vision that might have been 2010, 2015, always great. You always had eagle eye vision. That will tank too. And so anywhere from like 3 to like 10 years after starting wearing the cheaters, and again, it depends on how quickly you progress and how, the age and all these other factors, everybody ends up in bifocals and progressive. And that means that you have no clarity at any distance, that no matter where you look, it's blurry. And that is really, to me, that's just really taking away the freedom, right? You can't see anything. You need them for driving. You need them for everything. And so obviously, what I don't recommend is like, oh, I'm not going to wear them. And then you're sitting there like straining, squinting your eyes. Obviously, at that point, you want to learn the natural vision habits. But I even tell my clients that have already stronger glasses, just maybe, start by increasing the brightness and, maybe you can go down a little bit. I had people that had like really like almost +4 glasses for reading. And they were like, you know what? The +2.5s are actually fine. You know what I mean? So we're the weakest, because again, there's no point in just straining and squinting because you're not going to help your vision at all when you do that. So. Yeah.
So what actually happens is that it overcorrects. I mean, what happens when you use the ones that is like so bright that you didn't really need? Maybe you could have had the plus whatever, and you've gone to the other one because it just, it's so good. What actually happens that creates the problem? Like what's going on to our eyes?
Basically, I mean, I don't really like to talk so much about strengthening, but there is a factor with eye muscles and eyes in general. There's a thing of relaxation. A lot of the things I teach, I would call relax exercises, but there's also a weakening, right, of the ciliary muscle and other, like the lens, according to what we hear from eye doctors, gets like thicker and stiffer. And so the ciliary muscle needs to be strong to make the lens bigger when we look up close, and it flattens when you look far, right? But now think of like, what are the things called that you put in shoes when you go to the orthopedic? I remember I had those too. The things that they put in your shoes because
orthotics.
Yes, I always mix that up. Okay, so I had those too. So, but in the end, it's about strengthening your feet, right? You need to strengthen your feet. If you just wear those, the support or for the back, unless you do extremely hard labor, right? But you want to strengthen your core and your back muscles. You don't want to just wear these support things. And so think of the glasses as support, which really weakens your eyes and eventually your distance vision, because now you're just having these huge magnifying glasses at the near point that will affect also how your eyes accommodate to the distance. So eventually the whole system will kind of break down.
Hey, Margie here. High-quality supplements are a big part of a comprehensive osteoporosis program. To help you, I offer a significant discount every day in my supplement store through FullScript. FullScript has the most extensive catalog of professional-grade supplements and wellness products I've ever found. So all you need to do is go to tinyurl.com. That's tinyurl.com/supplements for less. And you'll get to my FullScript store. And in there, you'll see my favorite bone building supplements. So make sure to check it out. And the link will also be in the show notes. So let's get back to the show. Okay, so now a couple other things. One of the huge things we haven't even brought up, and, I deal with a community of people who care about their bones and want to prevent fractures. And this is a big issue because people don't realize that vision can be a huge risk factor in falls, and especially peripheral vision. And the good news is there's so much that you teach that we can do for our peripheral vision. So do you want to talk about that and maybe share something that we could all do?
So there's two factors. And I think we've all, if you've ever done, close your eye, I don't know if you do yoga or not, but let's say maybe you're pretty good at tree pose in yoga, right? Where you have one leg up and you standing on one leg, just standing on one leg. Now you close your eyes, right? You immediately oops, and you topple over, right? So we know how important our eyes or the vestibular system is to give us a sense of proprioception where we are in space. Now, vision, we talked about the central vision earlier. We talked about how your area of clarity in the macula is really small, but you have this big visual field, right? We have a big panoramic visual field, with the two eyes working together. So there's the focal point where I look, but there's also the periphery to the side and then also up and down, right? So, but basically, have you ever bumped into things or not noticed something, right? Maybe you didn't notice something moving because you have such tunnel vision. And that's another thing I see with glasses, because glasses give you the sense that everything behind the glass is sharp, which it is not, because remember the macula, even with the glasses, it's just the center of your vision is perfect. And everything outside of the glasses frame is super blurry. Now, everybody's peripheral vision is not good. It's we see movement in the outer periphery. We see moving things like cars and birds and cats and people, but we do not see anything sharp. So if we wanted to see it sharp, we would turn around and look at the thing straight on, right? To what is this thing they're moving? So peripheral vision, often glasses is one thing, computer vision is another thing where we get more, and then stress, where we get into that, and all of these things combined, glasses, computers, and stress, deadlines at work, we get into this kind of tunnel vision field. And that puts a huge strain on your central vision. And because that lack of spatial awareness, where are we in space, what's around us, it's much more likely that you overlook something, that you trip on something. The other piece of that is the two eyes working together. If you've ever put an eye patch on and you just cover one eye, right? You can do that right now. And then, now you don't have two hands left. But if you ever try to have with one eye, or try to pour a pitcher into a glass, you will notice that it's challenging. We don't really, with one eye only, we don't have any sense of depth perception. And what I see as we get older, a lot of times the depth perception gets weaker. And the depth perception means that it's a step, not a shadow on the floor, right? So have you ever texted someone and then you were walking and you kind of thought you tripped because you thought it was a step, but it was just a shadow? That's an example of. So basically we want optimal depth perception. And I see that a lot when we get older. And I also see that a lot with so-called mono or monocular vision correction, which is becoming more popular. And I know people that love it. It's your choice. But basically either with contacts, LASIK, or lens replacement surgery, where one eye is corrected for near and one eye is corrected for far. So the idea is that you don't need glasses. Instead of wearing progressive glasses, or you don't, you can see sharp at any distance. But now only one eye is looking. The other one is open, but really only one eye is looking. And what I've seen a lot with clients that I work with that had monovision correction, either one of those three ways, they definitely have struggles with depth perception. Either it's not there or it's really weak. And so strengthening that is not that challenging, but it's really important. that along with that peripheral field. So both of those things are really, really important in terms of, so it's not just the sharp vision, which is the visual acuity that's measured in an eye exam, right? The 20/20 vision, that's our sharp vision. But the peripheral vision is also, we talked about night vision, right? At night, we don't actually see anything in the macula. We see right next to that where there's the rod cells. So, you know what I mean? So learning how to use your whole visual field and the eyes together as a pair is super important.
And would you be able, you had taught on the summit a really wonderful technique for peripheral vision. You want to share?
I don't even remember which one I taught, but there's a simple one that you can do it. So, I mean, there's many, many simple ones you can do. So if you have a Post-it stick or any other piece of paper, and maybe you have some masking tape if you don't have Post-its, but one, I'm just sticking 2 Post-its together here, and I hope my forehead is not too greasy, but basically, and obviously you can make them narrower or wider, right? I wouldn't make it too wide. But basically, one way to optimize your peripheral vision is to just stick some kind of paper right on your forehead, and so that you're now blocking I have to hold it, I think it's going to fall off, but so that you're blocking your center vision. So now I have the middle periphery and the far periphery, right? So everything else, when I look straight into the paper, so the point of this is not, when you have that on your face, is not to try to look around the paper, but you're looking into the paper. But now you have, I don't see you anymore, Margie, now that I have that paper in front, covering my nose and my eye, my inner eyes. But I see the computer and I see all the other things around me. And that's a really great way. You can just sit there. Maybe you can, if you're in a safe place, walk around the house, or so stimulating your peripheral vision. You can create movements. So that's a really easy one that I teach in more advanced versions. But that's an easy way to, or another way is to just cover one eye, but not with the back of your hand, in a way where the thumb is near the nose, in a way that there is still light coming in from the outside, right? So yeah, do that. So look straight. Don't look to the side, Margie. Look straight at me. Look straight at me. And now just notice, what do you notice in your peripheral field? What is there? You probably don't see any details, but you see there is something, right?
Yeah, I see just some light, really, like a little bit.
Yeah. You know where you are, right? But basically, so that's just the way, I teach sometimes people getting occluding glasses, from old sunglasses to pop out one lens, but really stimulating that peripheral field. And for us humans, what we use the most is the outer peripheral field on the sides and then below. And that's great for hiking, by the way, too. I see a lot of times people are hiking and the whole time they're just looking down a foot in front of them. They don't even look at the gorgeous environment. Now, if you're going over sticks and stones and crazy terrain and you want to look down, but let's say you're on a flat path, right? And your peripheral vision will pick up that rock or whatever that is 20 feet in front of you. When you get closer, at some point you can look down and step over it. But really, that's another way to train this, is really, because we have great peripheral vision. The top is not so evolved because we don't really have predators coming from the top, it's but, snakes on the bottom or, animals. And then usually a lot of our scanning as humans is more like the horizontal scanning where we move our, so that's usually our most important kind of area of importance is the sides.
Oh, that's great. That was the one I was thinking of, the one in front. Well,
okay.
Oh, these have been so great, and we could go on and on. But I think I'm telling everybody just how my life really changed. The cupping, when I added the cupping and the sunglasses, I would say were the 2 things, and the blinking. So I did 3 things after the first time I met you that completely changed everything. But besides me, well, actually, I just can't get over what's happened to people in my community who have worked with you. That's the thing that convinced, because I personally don't wear glasses. But when people are writing me, thank you so much for introducing me to Claudia. I did her program and I was able to completely change my prescription. All these things that I truly, I'm being honest, when I first heard this, I'm like, really? I just don't know. I just don't know if I buy this. But then when I've had so many people in the community thank me that either they're not wearing glasses or they've changed their prescription, they're going down. I can't even tell you how this works and how people have just been so grateful to me to introducing them to you. So because you have this challenge, and that's where a lot of people took the challenge And you have a free, it's at 5 days? Is that what it is? How many days is it?
Yeah, so I have this, and I do want to, I really am so appreciative that people from your community are absolutely amazing. They're my favorite clients. They have that because you teach them the happiness. And I think that's a huge piece that I also teach, just like your mindset, your beliefs. Do you always say I'm blind without my glasses? So we talk a lot about that also in our community. And so thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I have a free training called See Better in Just 5 Days. And the reason I created that, I don't like to call it a challenge because we already stressed enough. So See Better in Just 5 Days is basically the idea. I would say, don't believe me. Don't believe Margie. Don't believe your eye doctor. Just see for yourself, right? That's what I usually say, because 5 days gives you enough to see that what you're doing and your habits have an impact on your vision. And one thing I hear from my clients and also those that work with me, some people have amazing results where they're out of glasses. For some people, it's a little drop. Some other people were able to avoid some surgeries, but we can never guarantee anything. And it also depends on your own commitment and how important this is, the diet that you eat. I mean, there's so many other factors that people are doing. But at a minimum, you understand your vision better. You understand how we see in the brain, not in the eye. You understand how relaxation is important, right? And maybe you can understand your eye doctor better when they explain to you that, you just feel more empowered, in terms of versus there's this verdict, I'm getting older, it's genetics, so I feel like a lot of people and I think your community are really we want to do something proactive. We don't want to wait till we hear all hope is lost, right? So I think that's really one of the main missions that I have. So the 5-day training, right? We do that. People can join for free. I go live every day. You get little pre-recorded videos, and then we go live. I answer your questions. We practice everything together. It's a super fun event. So you can definitely sign up. Margie has the link, I think, right under the show notes, right?
Yes. And what day? I know if people are listening and the time has passed, you do this other, you do this other time. So we'll have the right, in the show notes, we'll have the most current. But when is this one starting? When is
the next one that we're doing is the August 19th is the first day, and then it runs through the 23rd. We also have prizes to give away. It's just it's a really fun event. I just absolutely love doing these 5-day trainings, and yeah, it's a blast. So that starts on August 19th, and I just started doing it twice a year. So it's not happened that much. And if you're watching this, and I hope you can join us.
And so if people are working, what time is the live part of it? What time is that at?
Great question. So first of all, everything is always recorded. So if you ever miss anything, right, you can always watch the recordings. So it's not just the trainings, but also the coaching calls are recorded. It's at noon Pacific time. So 3 p.m. Eastern, which is, I'm in Germany right now as I'm recording this, visiting my family. So it's 9 p.m. In Central Europe time, 8 p.m. in England. And yeah, so it's pretty doable for most time zones. Maybe it's 5 or 6 a.m. in Australia or New Zealand. But, I try to find a time that works for pretty much most time zones in the world.
Yeah, but the good news is that it's all recorded. And so people don't have to, you'll get the recording with all the information in it. So yeah, I'm excited about that because I just love, I think one of the fun things on the podcast to me is when you can share information that you really know is going to make a difference in people's lives. And I really feel that vision is so important. I just know how freeing I am now. I have friends who, honestly, I'm the driver now because they don't like if we're all going out to dinner or somebody's birthday or something. They're like, I'm like, no, I don't mind driving at all. But it wasn't like that, especially on the highway. So I'm just so appreciative. And this stuff really works. But again, as Claudia said, don't take anybody's word for it, but it's here. It's a free resource. And I think it's so wonderful that you do that for 5 days so people really can get a taste. Is this for me? Is this something that may help? And, vision's scary. I had a grandmother who had macular degeneration. she didn't have macular. I had an uncle with macular degeneration. My grandmother had retinosis. I never pronounce it right. She completely lost. Pigmentosa. Yeah. And she completely became blind. And, we want to preserve our eyesight. We want to preserve our vision as much as we can. And there's so much that can be done when you just take action, and it's just such a win-win. So I'm so grateful. Is there anything else before we end? I mean, you and I could talk forever, and that is
we all
true.
had.
We do have similar communities because we view the world as not limitations, like what can be done. Not like, oh, poor me, I'm losing my eyesight, or no, I'm not. Oh, poor me, my bones are getting weaker. No, 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 no. We look at things. Okay, what's the opportunity here, and what action can I take so I can be a victor and not a victim, and turn things into actionable steps that really do enhance your life. So I think that's why I don't know, people just love your class. So it's all good. Anything else you want to share before we end, Claudia?
I just think realizing that you have, just like, I think everybody that's in your community or listening is probably already really into holistic health and addressing the health from a holistic perspective, and really learning about their own habits, their own whatever they can do to keep their body and mind in optimal shape, and learning some of these basic things. I think nobody has ever said, oh my God, I wasted my time. Just like learning those things, learning little habits you can do that have a big impact. So yeah, I encourage you to find the time to join us for the 5 days. Make that a priority. Like, think about what happens if you don't see well, right? Like you said, we have many elderly parents or uncles or aunts or other people that we know lost their vision, and all of a sudden they're like really helpless. And so don't wait till it gets so bad. I mean, where the eye doctors say, now we can't do it. There's, cataract, we can do surgery, but there's other eye conditions where there is not really much we can do. We can stop the progression, but really, how important is your vision? And don't you want to be proactive and keeping it as good as possible?
Well, I can't thank you enough. It's always a pleasure being with you. And thank you again for coming and sharing so many tips. And everybody put these tips to use right away as well, because they're very powerful. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Margie.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Claudia as much as I did, and now have some new tools to improve your vision and reduce eye strain. Make sure to sign up for Claudia's free See Better in Just 5 Days challenge. It's full of even more amazing information. The link to that will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.